Hello, it's Jacob Iannucci here, your go-to East Valley buyer's agent in the Phoenix area. And today I want to talk about some key pillars for home buying success and making sure you have the best opportunities available to you on your home buying journey. So my first pillar that I want to share here is about financing and pre-approvals. And this is a crucial first step to any of the non-cash buyers like myself. I bought my first house last year and I was not a cash buyer. I did have to obtain financing like most buyers out there. And making sure what you qualify for and what your comfort level is really going to be crucial to make sure that you are going to be set up for success in the long run when purchasing a home. So connecting with a lender and not doing just a pre-qualification, but a pre-approval will help you have the best game plan, your best foot forward in negotiations, and also, as I said, your comfort zones. So what does that really look like here? Well, the great thing is once you get pre-qualified and especially pre-approved, you can start seeing what loan programs you qualify for. So you might qualify for low or no down payment programs. You also might be able to get better rates, some closing costs back as a credit due to income levels, things like that. So knowing what your options are will help you too, but also being able to demonstrate to a seller or your agent that, hey, we are ready to go. We have everything done up front, and we are not going to run into as many issues once we get our contract from the financing side because everything's been verified. It really will help you set up a lot more of a success plan versus other buyers. And you might have heard me mention a moment ago, pre-qualification, pre-approval. What's the difference? Well, a pre-qualification is kind of just like an introduction thing between you and a lender. You might do a soft on credit. They'll take a loan application, but not check everything off the bat. They'll do more later on. Well, if you do a pre-approval, that later on becomes sooner. Basically, you have to send in things like W-2s, pay stubs, bank statements, if you've got any alimony, child support, investment accounts, 401ks, things like that. If you send it all in up front and they can verify everything, if they have questions, ask those questions and be able to sort through them from the get-go, you'll have a lot higher of a chance getting back to that seller, as I said, with a good, strong offer. And that seller's going to feel more confident, and you're much more likely to get that house with minimal issue. At the very least, get a pre-qualification, preferably pre-approval. But if you go about it without any of that, it's a total guess game. You don't know what's going on. So do as much as you can up front to avoid headache later on. My second pillar is going to be establishing your criteria for your home search. And you might be asking yourself, well, what's most important for my home search? I don't know what I'm looking for exactly. And if you ask that question, there are going to be some key things that you know off the bat. An example that probably everyone's going to use is price. What's that number and what does that look like for you, what you're comfortable with? And that number might depend on different factors such as like HOA costs, taxes, what your down payment is, and obviously mortgage rates. But being able to determine that price will obviously determine what homes you're looking at. So once you've established the price of the home, you might be asking, well, what type of home should I look for? There's things like true single-family detached houses or patio homes. There's also townhomes and condos and even manufactured modular homes too. And some other variables that you should determine as well too will be things like the size of the home or even the lot as well. How many bedrooms and bathrooms do you want? Do you want a private pool or not? Would you want a multi-story home or do you want just a single story? Do you want a basement? Do you want to be with an HOA or not in an HOA as well? And what do you want your community to feature? Do you want a community pool, tennis court, green belts, tot lots, walking paths, things like that? So asking those questions up front will help you narrow in even more. My third pillar is going to be how to find your dream home. And we all know about BLS and public websites such as Zillow, Realtor.com, Redfin, Homes.com. But where are those other opportunities at? Well, the good news is there are off-market opportunities, things like new construction deals that are not publicly advertised or not very well publicly advertised at least. That could be things such as extra incentives for appliances, closing cost help. You could also get lower interest rates than the market would be offering if you do use the builder's preferred lender. And that can allow you a lot more opportunity on how much home you can afford too, since ultimately your cost to get in the door and pay month by month is going to be less than other homes might be on the resale market. And those aren't the only opportunities as far as just new homes. There's also resale homes that might have some too. And there's a few examples that I want to share. The first one being unlisted investor properties, things that an investor might have bought to flip or renovate or have maybe been holding for some time, but they haven't listed them. So where do you find these and how do you find them? Well, a great buyer's agent's able to find those through different off-market MLS resources and maybe even tax record as well Takes some creativity there. There's not really like an exact game plan of how to find those each time, but I've had a few clients that have looked for things like that, and we've been able to establish how we get there. Well, what about properties that maybe were listed but aren't listed anymore? Things like expired listings or canceled. Well, those are also found on the MLS too. They're pretty hard to find on public websites just with the way those websites aggregate their data and put it in. There's a good clean search function for it. So on the MLS, on my end, as an example, I've been able to find a client that was looking for a home in a very particular area, at a very particular type of floor plan. And while nothing on the current for sale market was available that fit what they're looking for, we were able to find a home that had not been sold about 4 or 5 months before, and we were able to get in the door and get a home that had the exact floor plan location they were looking for and a price range they were good with, and also still get some closing cost help from the seller. And if that home was back on the market with where that market was heading at that point, I'm not so confident we would have gotten all that incentive. But because we were able to find an opportunity that a seller had basically struck out once, and we were ready to get that, we were able to strike gold and end up really well there. My fourth pillar is going to be market research and the dynamics of individual markets. So look at things when you're looking at real estate markets and trends. There's the general macro trends that everyone talks about of what prices are doing or what's price per square foot, but there's more micro trends too of a certain area, a town, a neighborhood, or a zip code even too. So drilling down those specific regions, where that be just as small as like an immediate community or a larger like a master plan community, a zip code, or even the town itself, will help you determine what's really going on in that individual market. What data am I necessarily referring to? Things like the home history would be a great example. What's going on with the home? Has it been up for sale before? When did it last sell? Is it selling a lot more than maybe other homes in the area, like every couple years versus every 5, 10, 15 years? The next thing I would say is agent and client situations. Is the agent someone that's had a lot of experience and done a lot of production, or maybe not that much? And as far as the client, have they gotten a few offers? Have they had a lot of showings? Do they need to sell this house or to buy their next one? What's really going on with them? As far as more specific data and statistics, a good example of that's going to be the contract ratio. How many homes are selling in relation to what's coming to the market? But also there's things like days on market. So how long are homes taking to sell when they're on the market? The concessions given. Are they giving a lot of money to buyers to buy their homes, or is it not that much? And that's going to depend on area, both micro markets and macro areas too. And a few more I'll share here are things like the list to sold price ratios, how many months inventory there is in that area, the absorption rate, and the listing success rate as well. So all these data points that you can conglomerate together and determine what's going on for you as a buyer and present that to a seller property is going to show your offers much more structured and well thought out than maybe someone who's just throwing a number on a page. My fifth pillar is going to be talking about making an offer and knowing that pretty much just about anything's negotiable. And what do I mean by that? Well, when you're writing an offer, consider there's really 5 key components to an offer. It's not just purchase price. That's the first one, but what are the other 4 then? It's going to be things like contingencies. Do you need to sell another home in order to buy this one? Are you wanting an inspection period, and how long do you want that? Do you need appraisal for your lender to get this deal across the finish line? The next thing would be closing costs. Do you need closing costs to get across the finish line? Do you have money to pay for your closing costs currently? Do you need something to sell it? What does that look like? And if so, how much? Your earnest deposit, how much skin are you really putting in the game up front? And of course, the closing date. Are you going to close quicker? Are you going to close later? And is it going to fit within the seller's timelines too, since every seller's got a different situation going on? And as you're putting this offer together, effectively approaching and communicating with the listing agent of what your offer is going to look like, and maybe finding out some details of what could incentivize the seller more and make your offer stand out, while still saying what your comfort zone is, will help you once again stand out over the competition. That's the key goal here. And while it can be a little scary sometimes to do this, calling the listing agent will really help your offer stand out too. Most buyers and their agents aren't making those calls. They might send a quick text, or they might just do nothing and send the offer and hope for the best. Sellers might be willing to share some details that you would really benefit from, but you wouldn't think they would want to share. And these don't happen all the time. It depends on that seller or even their agent overstepping their boundaries there. But sometimes you can take advantage of some really interesting situations because someone spoke a little bit too much and now you've got the upper hand. So my 6th pillar here is going to be what happens once you get under contract. Well, keep in mind this. Much of what a good agent does is going to fly under the radar during a transaction. A lot of it happens behind the scenes, and most of the time agents will let the clients know every single little communication, email, phone call, text between the other parties in the transaction, unless there's some real update there. So there's going to be a team behind the scenes, not just your agent, but on the title and escrow side. They're going to help navigate the process and have the best game plan to move forward. Think of a buyer's agent like a quarterback. They're essentially keeping the full team glued together to make sure that the process moves smoothly, efficiently, and on track for everyone's target goals there. Making sure that everyone's communicating and everything flows between all the parties seamlessly can help a lot, as there can be quite a bit of overlap during the purchase process. This also involves communicating with the lending and mortgage team, things like the processors and the underwriters, and of course loan officers, home inspectors, listing agents, the other seller as well too. There's a lot of people moving parts to these transactions, and while they can seem a little complex, that's what a great buyer's agent is for. And remember, if anything, stay within the contract guidelines as far as dates and amounts for earnest deposits and your purchase price, unless they've been renegotiated. If you step outside of that, that's a great way for you to be at risk of a breach of contract and either get your earnest money lost or even worse, get sued. Well, what really happens once you're under contract? The first 2 days are going to be things getting like seller disclosures and title reports from the title company. You're also going to get insurance history reports to show have there been any claims in the last few years of the seller's ownership period. But also during that time, you need to work closely with your lender if you are financing to get signed loan disclosures. Get that rate locked and review things like your HOA CC&Rs. If you're within an HOA, even if you're not in an HOA, you might still have some deed restrictions. So know what you're getting yourself into and make sure there's not any other property agreements or easements on the property, especially for acreage in weirder areas. They're not going to be the most straightforward always, and you might have some very interesting plot dimensions there. But at the very least, every week you should be checking in with your lender and knowing what's going on. In our contracts here, we have what's called the loan status update, which goes out typically every week and shows what's going on and what parts of the contract process have been completed for the lender's obligations. But once you get closer to closing, you want to know, has your closing disclosure gone out and have you been able to sign that? What does that look like? Make sure everything is on the up and up there too. And once all that is done and you've got your final approval, you signed your closing disclosure, you know how much you're bringing to closing, well, then you start to get towards the finish line. There's going to be some things that come up and you're going to want to know what to look out for. So getting your settlement statement from the title company is going to show what you're paying and what the seller's paying. And there's going to be things such as credits and debits. And they might look a little confusing. So feel free to lean on them as the title company, or even your buyer's agent as well, as that's what they're there for, to help navigate this process. And during all this process too, don't forget to transfer your utilities. After all that's done, you're even closer to the finish line. They'll do a final walkthrough, and if that's on a new build, it might be a little bit different than a resale, but the gist is you'll make sure that repairs are done. Just make sure they haven't done new damage. There's not any new big areas of concern that weren't addressed before. In the last few parts of before you close on a home, make sure that any of your wires for your down payment, or if you're doing a cashier's check, title company allows, are ready to go and ready to get put into the title company's hands. And check on your lender's wire as well. Make sure that it's queued up and ready to go too, and there's not any delays there. Making sure also that everyone is signed with title and any of the lender documents too will avoid any last second scares of we're not able to close this today because we're missing a crucial signature. So make sure that all that's taken care of and that you can close smoothly and easily on the new home. The seventh pillar here is what happens after closing. So there's a few areas that I want to address here, and the first one is going to be the title and ownership side. So after you close, you might want to do some estate planning or put the house in a trust or do a beneficiary deed. So knowing an attorney of who to contact for these things can help navigate the process on that end. On the tradespeople side, there's a few different areas that you might need help with. The first one's cosmetic, things like painting, flooring, cabinets, interior design. There's also things like structural needs, such as plumbers, electricians, foundation experts, a roofer, or even a window company if you've got some really old rattling windows. But that's not all. There's some more miscellaneous needs too that I've seen clients need. Things like an appliance contact, a mover, or even just someone to set up their internet too. And knowing who to call will help a lot more with having trusted people by your side and someone that you can call if there's ever an issue down the road with that specific need. And while I've been alluding to it and mentioning it throughout the video, if you're genuinely unsure and aren't able to navigate the process alone, feel free to reach out with any questions you have. Drop a comment below, feel free to give me a call, shoot me a text, send me an email. Be more than happy to talk about what that looks like. And thanks so much for watching today. I really appreciate it, and I look forward to helping fund your home buying journey. Thanks so much, and we'll talk soon.